When growing up, your sensitivity was likely misunderstood. We are incredibly intense beings as highly sensitives, as HSPs, and we feel emotions intensely and we react intensely. And so often we were misunderstood because our parents probably didn't know about sensitivity. So you might have heard these words of, it's no big deal. Why are you overreacting? Why are you blowing this out of proportion? This really is nothing. You look at your sister. She's not reacting that way. Everything's fine. Which in and of itself is not too bad if done empathetically. But these voices become the voices in your head as you grow up. So maybe now you catch yourself in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s with that voice in your head whenever something happens and you can't initially logically understand why you had such a big reaction to it. And these voices in your head are going, you're acting like a child. This is no big deal. Why are you acting like this? That happened to me this last week, preparing for this wonderful, lovely Easter holiday with my family. It was the first time that we're celebrating Easter together. Moved in with my boyfriend and his two wonderful kids and my kiddo. But there's so many emotions that came up for me all through the week, kind of preparing for this holiday, that I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm going crazy. What is wrong with me, right? That's the big thing we always go to as highly sensitives. What is wrong with me? Nobody else is acting or seems to be acting that way. Why am I feeling so strongly about this? Hi, I'm Christine, your emotion coach and the host of this podcast, Reclaim Your Power as an HSP. And this is really what we were talking about in all the episodes, is to find our place in this beautiful society, right? We're only 15 to 20% of the population, but we are an important part, just like everybody else is an important part. But we tend to downplay ourselves. We tend to think that we are weak. We tend to think that we are, unpredictable emotionally, right? We tend to feel that we are so flawed or broken that we need to make up in other ways for it. And this podcast is to bring you back, to remind you and to claim this spot as this beautiful, wise, intense, and yet insightful and deep and magnificent and creative being that you are. There definitely is a place in this world for us with all of our emotions and all of our empathy. Everyone else feels these things as well, just not as intensely as we do, and they probably don't analyze them as much as we do, right? We're deep thinkers. But today in particular, I really want to talk about this, allowing yourself to feel your feelings deeply without shame, right? How can we come back to just feeling a feeling and being curious about it without shaming ourselves, without hearing these critical voices in our heads, making us small, making us feel like we're not in the right place? I want to give you a couple of reasons of why this is an important topic if you're not hooked already. Number one, when we judge ourselves for our emotions, we actually intensify the emotion because we're entering into a battle with our emotions, right? Because emotions naturally move through us, move through the body when they are acknowledged. But when they are judged, our body equates that to, I'm not safe, right? We judge these emotions. Ooh, this emotion is not safe. We're on alarm. We're not safe with this emotion, which ironically actually makes us hold on to this emotion. It's almost like we grab it because it's not safe to have it out here. So we grab it and we stick it into a drawer. But this drawer is deep within us and it's going to collect and fill up. And we really want to purge these emotions by feeling these emotions and allowing these emotions. Obviously, there's always caution to be had if there's a big T trauma, right? We're not talking about that today. These are just everyday things that you come across where you're like, ooh, my feelings are hurt. Ooh, I'm overwhelmed. Whoa, this like made me really jealous. You know, those everyday kind of emotions that stay with us as sensitives. Let's go on. Why is it so important to come back around to allowing ourselves to feel our feelings, to have the feelings that we have? If we judge ourselves frequently for the emotions that we have that we don't like, it starts to build this feeling within you that you cannot trust your own emotions. So then you start looking for validations on the outside from others. And that is a slippery slope, right? We know that we've got to build that acceptance and that love from within first before being able to accept it and acknowledge it from the outside. Also, by judging our emotions, whatever we might be feeling, it intensifies that feeling of I'm too much. Something is wrong with me. I am too much. Others can't handle me. Others can't handle this emotion. So many of us, once we start to work on ourselves, start to go into so much anger. And that's probably likely because we weren't allowed to express it in our younger years, or it was frowned upon, right? We got some kind of negative feedback for expressing anger in any kind of way or some other emotions in a way that didn't please or was difficult for the people around us. So as you see, it is so incredibly vital for us, especially as highly sensitives, to come back around to give ourselves, right? We don't need that permission from anyone else. Although it is beautiful, just as last week I asked, well, not necessarily for permission, but I asked for understanding from my boyfriend, and that permission you give yourself of like, I just want to feel these feelings, right? My boyfriend is wonderful. He's a wonderful soul, but he goes into, with his own patterns, he goes into immediate fix-it mode, right? That's kind of the guy response of like, I gotta fix this. I gotta nip this in the bud. I gotta be there for my girl. I'm gonna fix it. Where I'm like, don't fix it. It makes me feel like I'm broken. Just let me feel these feelings. Just let me express these feelings. Just let me have my little stomp on the ground like a child kind of moment, and then it'll pass through, and then I'll be good, and we don't even have to solve anything. It's good after that. Permission, giving yourself the permission to feel. And I didn't at the beginning of the week, and you always know when you don't, because you feel that tug of war within you. You feel that hitting against your own barriers. You feel like you're fighting yourself when you're not giving yourself the permission to feel those feelings without shaming yourself or criticizing yourself for it. So hopefully you've come to that conclusion of like, okay, Christine, I get it. I want to get back to allowing myself, but I don't even know how I even begin to give myself permission for that, because that voice is just instant. So this is what today is all about, right? I'm going to give you 5 quick and easy, but so deep and so powerful, these 5 steps of how to come back to giving yourself that permission without shame. Let's jump into it. Number 1, catch yourself in the act and listen, right? Did it happen to you last week? Can you remember when was the last time when you were like, oh, I just thought that, and then I thought that? Pay attention today, pay attention the next day. When you catch yourself, when you're feeling a certain thing, and then you hear that inner voice saying something like, I shouldn't be feeling like this, or why is this affecting me so much, or why do I feel like a little kid, or I'm acting like a child, or what's wrong with me, right? It's like I have this deep feeling of like, I've processed this already. I've worked on this already. I've dealt with this already. Why is this coming up again? I shouldn't feel the way I'm feeling. And those words are really dangerous. So I want you to put a little alarm clock with it. It's like, if I hear this, if you hear these words, I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't feel what I'm feeling. There should be alarm bells going off going, okay, how can I allow myself? How can I give myself that permission? So that's step number one, right? Realizing when you're doing it. That's huge. Just recognizing when this pattern starts. And I always like to write things down, right? Journaling helps hugely. If you don't have the chance, you can always record yourself, do a voice note, record it, let it out. And that will already help you with step two, which is separating those two characters that you have within you. You have the feeler, the one who feels the emotion, and you have the judge, the one that judges or criticizes you for that emotion. If you start to see them as separate, you're creating space that already creates more safety because you are the observer and you are no longer inside the shame, but you are actually the observer of the shame. It helps me in this step to name the emotion that I'm actually feeling. So I'm really giving that part, the feeler part of me, that very specific, I don't want to say label, but that very specific like word, that description, right? It's like, oh, I'm feeling this, right? I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm judging myself for it, right? They're two different things, two different parts. This part of me is feeling overwhelmed. This part of me is frowning upon that, right? It's like you might see it visually in your head. Describe it. What is going on with these two parts, but separate them. And around to step number three, normalize before you analyze. Normalize that feeling. Because what do we do so often? So often we think, oh, I need to figure this out quickly. I need to fix this quickly. I cannot stand being in this intense emotion. I cannot stand feeling this intensely. I need to change it. I need to fix it. I need to take action. So yeah, that initial instinct is I need to fix it or figure it out so that I can stop feeling the feeling. But if we analyze our feelings before we validate our feelings, oftentimes we actually get stuck in the feeling. So we have to validate first and foremost. That's why we say normalize, right? We have to see the value. We have to validate the emotion. Quick ways to do this is through like mantras, through soothing things you can tell yourself, right? Like things like, of course I feel this way. Of course I feel this way. Anybody else would feel this way about it. That doesn't always work because as highly sensitives, we might have a more sensitive point, or whatever your past, your experience was, you might have some different triggers at somebody else, but at least you can say, there are some other people who would be feeling this way. But if anything, just a blanket statement of course I feel this way. Of course. It makes sense to me, right? That's the next one. This makes sense. That's a big one that Dr. Becky from Good Inside, right? The parenting coach, she's so amazing. Parenting psychologist, she likes to use that one to validate as a parent your emotions that you're feeling about your kid, which can get crazy. This makes sense that I'm feeling this way. Just those two sentences alone are huge. So let's take an example, right? Like, let's say you and your friend are texting something and then all of a sudden something comes back and you're just like, ooh, that kind of hurt, right? But are you acknowledging that in your mind, or is your mind telling you things like, this is stupid. This wasn't a big deal. She didn't mean to hurt me. What she said was supposed to be fun. Why am I overreacting like this? This is really stupid. Why am I so sensitive, right? That's the first thing we do. And then that critic steps in, that judge steps in, and then it goes into, oh man, that feeling now, that hurt, that pain is now intensified. Now I'm overthinking. Now I'm stuck in this loop, right? Because I've just judged myself for, oh, I shouldn't be feeling that way. Why was I so overly sensitive? She didn't mean it that way, and yet this is how I feel. That is already a good step if you're saying, but this is how I feel, because so often we're like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. So if you're normalizing, one of the first steps would be, this actually hurt, right? Just acknowledging it to yourself, because you are huge in validating your own emotions. If you can validate your own emotions, you're halfway there. If you can just name the emotions, say, whoa, I actually feel hurt. And then you can go into, of course this affected me, right? I really care about this relationship. I really care about her deeply. Or I've really been working on my self-confidence and I'm not quite there yet. Of course this would affect me. It makes sense that my system reacted. It makes sense. Your nervous system actually calms down by being seen, even by yourself. If you can see yourself in that moment, having that emotional reaction, you're validating yourself. Wow, that is the beginning of giving yourself that permission to feel without shame. The 3 keys here are no fixing, no rushing past it, and no minimizing the emotions, right? I'll write those below because they're super important. If you can remember those or just like write it on your mirror, am I doing this? Okay, that's not giving myself permission to feel. Let me do the opposite of that. Let me take a moment. Let me take a breath. And the interesting thing is, you will start to notice that when you stop judging yourself for having that emotional or that intense emotional reaction, you actually move through it more quickly, which feels like magic, right? You're like, what? If I actually feel it, I'm going to get through it quicker? Yes, that's generally how it works. Emotions often don't really need to be solved. They really just need to be acknowledged. And one thing that really helps me with that stuff, with going to that mindset, is just looking at an old belief, right? I used to have this belief that my emotions are the problem, right? Certain emotions, like, ooh, my anger is the problem. My anger caused this hurt or this trouble with my boyfriend, or my sadness, or my, even like naming it, it's mine, my depression. Labeling certain emotions like, ooh, I only want to be in the good emotions. I only want people to see my good emotions. I can't let them see overwhelm. I can't let them see anxiety. I can't let them see anger. I can't let them see sadness. Ask yourself if you're comfortable, at least with some people, seeing those emotions, seeing you in those emotions at certain times. Are you comfortable with seeing yourself in these emotions in certain times? Can you see any benefit in any of these emotions? That was one of my big aha moments of like, whoa, anger actually has a purpose. Sadness, depression, anxiety actually have a purpose. They are just messengers, and they are just as important as any other emotion. And they give us, wow, such a beautiful, like, rounded feeling, a 3D, 5D feeling of what we have going on in this world. They just, they make everything so beautiful. I always imagine of like using all the colors, right? Instead of just having like 5, 6, 7 like beautiful colors, can I go in the whole range? Do I like those dark blues, those dark greens, even the gray, even the black, even the brown? Do they have value? And yeah, they really do. One of my favorite spiritual teachers, Bashar, channeled by Daryl Anka, they always say, under every emotion lies a belief. You couldn't feel anything if you didn't believe something first. So a good way to kind of understand where a certain emotion came from is to ask yourself, what must I believe is true in order to feel the way I do? But remember what we were just talking about. Normalize the feeling before analyzing. I love to dive deep and to understand why something triggered me or why I have such a strong reaction. Like, gosh, you can even take this into like the realm of intuition. I remember I was dating a guy and he was just about to go away for a business trip. And like 2 days before he was leaving, my emotions were just going berserk. I was like all kinds of jealous. I was antsy. I was anxious. I was like, what is happening? He's just going on a business trip. So I journaled about it. I calmed myself down. He came back from the business trip, and lo and behold, the feeling was even more intensified. And that night he was like, I need to tell you, I fell back in love with my ex-girlfriend. So it's like, I knew it on some level, right? Emotions always have a reason. If we can start to be curious rather than judgmental about even our darker emotions, wow, you are going to have such a rich and textured life. Number 4, of teaching yourself how to give yourself permission to feel without shame. Number 4 is the magic is in the pause. Where a lot of HSPs get stuck, and I think I'm definitely one of them. I'm a fast processor. I like to take action fast, right? I feel intensely and I want to change quickly and I want to see change quickly. But oftentimes we get stuck in the thinking that emotion equals action, right? We need to do something about it immediately. Like, right? When you like text somebody right back and then you're like, oh, maybe I should have given that a minute. Or you write somebody back, like an email or something that like deeply affects you and you're just like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I now set myself that rule of like, sure, I can write right back and then save it as a draft. And then I'll read it in the morning when I'm in a different state. And if I still want to send it the way it is, then I'll send it. But at least I gave myself a little bit of time in order to normalize, in order to come down, in order to be in a different state, right? It's one thing to validate it yourself, and then it's another thing, the actions that you take from there. A great mantra for that is, I can feel this fully without needing to take action. I can feel this fully and I can journal about it and I can ask questions and I can process it, but I don't have to take immediate action, right? Ask yourself, in this moment, can I just feel? How would I give that space to my child or to my partner or to a good friend when you know that they just kind of need to feel it? Like after a breakup, when it's just like your emotions are so raw and you're so hurt and nothing will make it feel better right now. It's just kind of a time you have to give it, right? It's like, can you hold that space? And if you can hold it for a friend, you can hold it for yourself. And then we're pretty much there with just these first 4 steps. I added a 5th one because, it helps me. It helps me in those really hard moments, in those moments where I'm really judging myself for whatever I might be feeling. Like when I'm in the moment, like wishing someone else ill, like somebody who just really hurt my feelings, or it feels in the moment like they did something on purpose to undermine me or something like that, when you're just having this like, I really don't like this person right now. When you're having these feelings, it's good to remind yourself that you don't have to figure it out. You don't need to find a solution. You don't need to continue to feel it if in the moment it is too strong, too close for comfort. I want to remind you that at any point you do have the power. The power is within you to change any emotion that is in the moment just a bit too much, or you need to be able to function. You need to be in a meeting. You need to do something, or even just to remind yourself, I can allow for myself to feel this feeling because I know I have the power to get out of it whenever I want to, right? A big thing. That was a huge shift for me when I knew that I wasn't going to get stuck. I wasn't going to get sucked into it. For a long time, it felt like I was in this big, deep, muddy hole. And right as I would kind of get to like the with a lot of effort to the top of like crawling out of this hole. I would hold on to that like last stick or something, and it would break, and I would just like slide all the way back into that hole. And I would just be afraid. How long would I be there? Would I go even deeper? Once I understood that I always have the power to change my state, to change my emotion, to change how I feel on the inside, on demand, it gave me the courage to feel those feelings because I knew I could get myself back out. And for that, I'd really love for you to download this little guide that I put together where I utilize some of the tools that I learned from Tony Robbins. He's huge. I tell you the 3 big steps that he talks about. He talks about physiology, what you're doing with your body is huge about emotions, right? We know the difference between how a person who's depressed acts in their body and how a person who's excited, energized acts in their body, right? What is their posture? What is their tone of voice? Where are their eyes pointing? How are they breathing? We do different things with our body, with our physiology, depending on our emotion. Well, we can use that the other way around. What we do with our body affects our emotion. Amazing. The second one is focus. What are we focused on, right? This is huge in Abraham Hicks as well. It's like your lazy focuses. You actually have the power to focus on whatever you choose. Now I hear you. Sometimes it is super challenging because you're focusing on something, then the other thing comes back up. You focus on something, the other thing comes back up. Huge, especially for us highly sensitives, because we get so it feels like everything else, like our thoughts, the pictures in our minds are faster than we are. They are taking control, but they're not. You can practice, you can train your focus. It is under your control. And the last of the triad that Tony Robbins talks about, physiology, focus, and meaning. What meaning do you give this, right? He always says, is this the beginning of the relationship or is it the end? Because if you treat it like the beginning of the relationship, it's going to be much different than the end, right? Or when your date is late, how do you treat it? What is the meaning you give it? Do you say, he already disrespects me. I can't be with somebody like that. He didn't even, let me know he was going to be late, whatever it might be. Or do you give it the meaning of like, wow, I wonder what happened. I hope he's okay. There's going to be a great story about it. Or I know that I am important and I think it's amazing, even that he was running late. He wanted to get here. He wanted to be here. It is the meaning that you give it, right? Of course, there are other much better examples of this, but you see the point. It's like the meaning that I give this, right? Is everything lost, or is this a chance to rebuild, to try something new? The meaning you give something has a huge impact on your emotions. I put all of this together and more in my guide to really guide you step by step through to give you that power, to instill that magnificent power, how you know that you can be in control of your own emotions, that you can change them at will, to change your emotions to what you need in the moment. Yes, of course, there's always, that's what we're talking about today, giving yourself the permission to feel what you're feeling right now, to understand why anger is here, why pain is here, why overwhelm is here, why anxiety is here. But once you understand that you could trick yourself into feeling something different, like when you're really sad and then somebody says or does something really funny and all of a sudden you're laughing, you're like, how can I laugh? I've been really sad and I'm still sad, but I just laughed, right? Our emotions can be changed. And once you understand that you have that power, you will have more courage to feel your feelings. So go download that guide where I step you through how to gain that power, that courage, that confidence that you are in charge. You are in the driver's seat of your emotions. Link is below. It's healingyouremotions.com/shift to get that guide so that you can feel empowered. All right, how are you feeling? I'm so excited that you're here with me. Let's quickly review these 5 things we just talked about. How do you even feel about giving yourself the permission? I'm so curious, like how this topic landed for you. When I read about like just the sentence, right, of like giving myself the permission to feel without shame, without shaming myself, without criticizing myself, without having this voice in my head that says, you're weak if you're going to be doing this. You shouldn't be thinking that. You shouldn't be feeling that. You are, whatever that voice might say. It's like, whoa, I can actually take that voice to be like, hey, 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 I have a right to feel that way. I even said that to my boyfriend at some point this week. I was like, can you just let me feel my feelings right now? I want to feel these feelings right now, and then I'll move through them, you know? It's like, I get it. I'm acting like a little kid right now, but I just need to be in this moment right now to let that move through me, and then I can figure out why this was such a big deal for me when it really shouldn't have been, right? We say when it shouldn't have been, when it feels uncharacteristically, unproportionately high, right? You can be curious about it, but notice the difference in energy between curiosity and criticism. So let's quickly review these 5 steps we talked about today. Number 1, catch yourself in the act and then listen, right? Listen, what am I actually feeling? Number 2, separate those 2 characters, the feeler and the judger. Number 3, normalize. Normalize before you analyze and really deeply allow, right? What is the word? Validate. If you validate yourself, if you see yourself, that's going to make a huge difference. Number 4, the magic in the pause. I don't have to take any action. Just because I feel something doesn't mean that I have to do something. Actually, it's better not to do something to try to make this feeling stop, because this feeling is here for a reason. It is here to serve me. Let me be curious and figure it out. After I validate myself for it, right? After I validate that it is okay. It is more than okay. It is brilliant that I am feeling the way I do in this moment. And then number 5, just reminding yourself that you've got the power. It is right within you. You are in charge of how you're feeling. And in any moment, you can conjure up the image within you, the sound in your ears, even the texture. Like, close your eyes for a moment. And if you love the beach, you're going to enjoy this little visualization. Just imagine that you're sitting on your favorite beach in the favorite time of day. Is it early morning? There's hardly anybody there. You can feel the warmth of the sand underneath your fingertips and your toes. You can feel how fine the sand is. You hear the ocean waves gently caressing the shore. You see a seagull gently swooping down. You feel the wind in your face. You feel the sunshine just tickling your nose. It's like, just you can put yourself there instantly, or wherever you want to be, at the top of the mountain, on a beautiful trail, hiking, hearing the wind between the leaves in the treetops, right? Like watching as the grass gently bows with the wind. What is it that you deeply enjoy? You can put yourself in that moment and actually deeply feel that moment whenever you want. That's also why they always say that gratitude is so powerful, because if you not just think, but actually feel moments of gratitude, like a big one I will think of is when I had my little baby boy. You know, when you're a couple of weeks into being a mom and you just finished nursing and this baby is just laying in your arms asleep, probably with like a cute little smile on their face, and everything feels so serene, and just you just feel like you have so much love in your heart, right? Think of a moment that you are deeply, deeply grateful for, and then try to conjure it up, try to make it bigger, try to feel it, hear it, taste it, sense it, be fully in that moment, and you will conjure that emotion in your body. That is how powerful we are. Thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed taking you through these steps, and I always learn something when I'm preparing for these podcasts. And I'm so excited that you are wanting to learn, that you are here to embrace more of the incredibly beautiful being that you are, so that you can shine and contribute to this world in a way that will uplift everyone. Have an amazing week, and I will see you next week.